Welcome, everybody. Welcome to How Data is Unlocking the Fluid Fan. I'm pleased to introduce Josh Walker, CEO and co-founder of Sports Innovation Lab, a fan intelligence and market research company using data to build the sports data cloud. At Sports Innovation Lab, Josh leads work with clients including the NFL, NHL, Nike, Google, Coca-Cola, to help them utilize data to acquire their future fans, the Fluid Fan. Josh, welcome.
All right, that was nice. Thank you, Gina. Yeah, cool, very good. You guys, thanks for coming. This panel is really, I think, pretty indicative of how CES has evolved in covering sports, making sports relevant to this conference. We started out about 7 years ago, running around checking out Fitbits and wearable technology. And the realization is that most of the money, most of the business of sports is run on media rights, advertising, sponsorship. That's really where the fan is being exposed to different brands, experiencing different content, establishing their fandom over time. And a key part of the infrastructure for this industry moving forward is having better data on the future fan. So we've assembled a stellar group. I mean, like, this is probably one of the best panels I've had in my career, and I'm not just shining these folks on. We've done this purposely. We've got a property, we've got big platform tech, we've got mobile tech, we've got a content company. We're really thoughtful about getting a very different perspective from across the industry on how the future fan is being thought of and really cultivated. You're going to hear buzzwords. This is a data panel. We're going to talk about targeting. We're going to talk about personalization. I'm going to do a disclaimer for the entire panel, and then I'm going to let them introduce themselves. Data is a loaded word. We all get freaked out when we think of companies tracking us and figuring out what we're doing. And you can assume that Google, knows everything about you. So Kate must have everything at her disposal to know what you're drinking and eating and sleeping on later tonight. But the reality is, and I've learned this from working with each of these companies, that they take privacy very seriously. And I want to just get that disclaimer out here so that we don't have to cover that when everybody talks. But it's also really interesting to know, because they take privacy so seriously, what data can they use? What data do they use? What metrics do they look at when they try to figure out who the future fan is? So my final soapbox piece on this is, we at the Sports Innovation Lab talk about the future fan as the fluid fan. We defined that years ago. We said the diehard fan is not the future of this industry. You can't just rely on the fact that dad was a Yankees fan, mom was a Yankees fan, so junior or their daughter is going to become a Yankees fan. You have to reach those fans where they are and engage them in a way that makes a ton of sense. And the reason we're at CES is because technology creates fluid fans. With every new device, with every new touch point, with every new way of engaging that fan, you have to be more mindful about, as a brand, as a media company, as a property, how you use that information to personalize the experience and build that loyalty that we've all really enjoyed for generations previous to this technology revolution. Okay, so that's me. I'm Josh Walker. I'm the CEO of the Sports Innovation Lab. I have Wendell, and then I have Kate, and then I have Christine, and then I have Stephanie. And I'm going to let them go through real quickly, introduce themselves, let you know what they do at their organizations. And then we're going to dive a little bit into how they're using data to find that future fan. Wendell, kick us off.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for responding back. I am Wendell Scott. I'm going to tap it out. No. I am Wendell Scott. I am Senior Vice President at Disney Advertising. I'm going to use you gave me that mic, by the way. Okay. Wendell Scott, Senior Vice President, Disney Advertising. I've been with the company for 24 years. The first 18 of them were with ESPN. I see a lot of my friends and former clients in here as well. What I see...
Seems to work when you're leaning.
I oversee holding company partnerships, and I also oversee our corporate partnerships that we have with the ACC and the SEC, and I also oversee our No? Okay. All right, there we go. And I'm going to pass it to Kate.
You want me to finish for you? Okay. Yeah, I work closely with Wendell's team. Hi, guys. Go Blue. I have to get that out of the way. I do have a Letterman's jacket here with me that might make it onto a different panel at some point this week. My name's Kate Johnson. I lead our global sports and entertainment marketing, media, and content partnerships team at Google. What that is, short term, is like a center of excellence, right? Google's massive. We have so many different product areas. And when I joined 4 years ago from Visa, we were really not coordinated kind of across those various verticals. So my job is to really bring conversations together to make sure that we're coming as a united front to partners like the NBA, the WNBA, the NFL, when we're having discussions about what it might look like for Google to enter into an integrated marketing partnership. I say that while also acknowledging that every single product area within Google is incredibly different, from cloud to Google Pixel to search and our consumer apps, PAs. So, my job is to effectively help lead our sports and entertainment marketing strategy, consult with each of our product areas on the KPIs that they're looking to drive, and then form the right associations for us to do that, and then help those teams bring them to life. Data informs a lot of how we go about doing that for each of those product areas. And so I'm excited to dig into that with you today.
Great. Hi, good morning, everyone. Oh, is mine working? Okay, there we go. Good morning, everyone. I'm Christine Wiley. I'm Senior Director of Sponsorships at Verizon. I've been with Verizon just over 2 years now. My official remit is management and oversight of our 35 plus team partnerships across the NFL, NBA, and NHL. And much like Kate said, bit of a center of excellence where we look to support both our Verizon Consumer Group, our network team, and our Verizon Business Group to leverage partnerships that we have and identify new team partnerships that will really help bring the Verizon network message and deliverables to life for fans of all of those teams. And again, thanks for Sports Innovation Lab for having me. I appreciate being here.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stephanie Rogers, the Vice President of Marketing with the Vegas Golden Knights, Stanley Cup champions. So welcome to the championship world. It's a fun place to be, and I'm going to continue using that until the next round. My role within the organization is really to grow and monetize our fan base. I was brought in July of last year, so it's been a little bit of a whirlwind since then. And really, my primary focus is on digital advertising and digital marketing. So how are we looking into our fan base, into our data warehouse? How are we utilizing it? How are we customizing messaging, things of that nature? Looking at fans both in the core sports world, but also growing the sport of hockey in market through ball hockey, women's hockey, girls hockey, things like that. And then also building out our fan experiences in person when you're at the games, and then our Latino and Hispanic marketing and outreach. So
awesome. So I'm going to throw it right back to you, Stephanie, because I think one of the things that I learned when I started focusing on the sports industry was something that I never thought would be true, which is despite all the sex and the glitter and the speed and all of the things that people think about with sports, it's kind of behind most other industries when it comes to data. You've learned firsthand because you've been asked to sell tickets, report on sponsorship, really launch events. Your background at the PGA is also really relevant to this conversation. Can you kind of give the audience a sense of like, what do sports organizations really know about their fans today? And how would you go about trying to reach new ones if you had to?
Well, I do have to reach new ones. That's what I think about every single day. I think we are a little bit behind probably in terms of data because we use a lot of other platforms and channels to capture the fan information, right? So when I was at the PGA Tour, I was selling tickets to golf tournaments. All of those tickets were sold through Ticketmaster. Now I'm selling tickets to our 41 plus home games every single year. All of those tickets are sold through Access. So all of that credit card information, all of the ticket buyer information, all of that is going through another step before it actually gets to me. And with that privacy as kind of the anchor and as the cornerstone of all of our data management, there's some of that information that can and cannot be passed through. So we're already a little bit at a disadvantage in terms of the core data that's defining who our fan is and where they are and what else they're doing with their money and their time and what their household looks like. So Oftentimes we're trying to piece together a little bit of a puzzle. So you have your census data, which I know seems way outdated to be using in 2024, but it is what it is. You have your data that's coming through from your ticketing platforms, for example. And then you have the fan data that fans are offering up to you through various other initiatives. So we've done a big survey-based fan profiling exercise over the last 3 or 4 months, which we had over 12,000 people offer up responses to over 41 questions. So that was pretty fantastic. So that's served as a lot of our kind of first-party data. And then we've also implemented a data warehouse, which we're now pulling in a lot more of that information from the different channels and figuring out how to utilize that. So while we are behind, we do have a very qualified audience, which I think is something that's very important. And I think that's something that we try to communicate on a regular basis to partners or to advertisers or, to anyone that we can. These fans are oftentimes willing to share more with us because they trust us. Generally speaking, your sports teams or your athletes or something is pretty core to somebody's identity. So when you when you introduce yourself, most of the time, if you're a sports fan, you're going to acknowledge who you're a sports fan of. So because they believe that that's core to their identity, they're willing to share more of their information with you a little bit more proactively. Whereas Kate just has to follow them around the internet and figure out what they're doing.
No, but I mean, how many
us, it's a little
times
bit
do
of
you
a
hear a
puzzle.
sports fan say, "I bleed blue"? It's like they believe it's part of who they are, and it is. It's core to their identity. So one of the things that we think about a lot at the Sports Innovation Lab is if you give fans the opportunity to really share more about themselves, if they know that there's a value exchange there, they're very open to this, especially in the next generation. So I want to turn to you, Wendell, because
Yep. Come
you
on,
have
please work.
because you have a mic that's working. You have a long history at ESPN, but now you really look at this, and I'm going to steal a little bit of your thunder because I love this. You said to me, like, live no longer means the game, right? Live could mean 365, 24/7. What do you mean by that? And maybe let everybody kind of get a window into sort of how you think about
Sure, thank you. So today, in more and more ways, the fluid sports fan is unlocking content in many different ways, which opens up so much different opportunity for all different brands as well. I'm good. I'm gonna stay with this one, and then I'll yell if I have to. Don't worry about it. So at ESPN and at Disney in particular, we look at first the consumption, right? The fan consumption. So it's not me. I've been holding microphones for a long time, so I don't know what's going on right now. Thank you. But we look at fans in many different ways. One is I'm going to challenge the notion a little bit that sports is behind, right? I'm going to challenge that notion because right here, just by Kate saying "Go Blue," we all knew what she was doing last night, right? We all knew like what a lot of us were doing last night. I think the sports fan is the easiest fan to actually unlock data on. The reason why we haven't done it is because it's the best reach vehicle and it works. Now we know that from an ESPN standpoint, we are looking at a couple different things. One is the consumption. How are they looking at linear, streaming, desktop, mobile, web, app? Because what they're doing now, what sports fans are doing is that live moment is not just when the game is on, right? I think all of us probably woke up this morning, looked at a lot of the highlights, looked at different platforms, looked at the stories that were going on, so on and so forth. And then we also use data in one other way. Look at them as not just fans, but also their consumer behavior. So as a platform that actually works very closely with my clients on this stage as well, right? When we think about our first party data, we think about not only what their consumption habits are, what's the consumer behavior in and around live sports and big events. When you put those two things together and then you sit down and match first party data coming from a Google or a Verizon, what does it mean? It actually gives you the best opportunity to tell your stories.
So can
Right.
you give the audience a really good example of
Sure.
like what a metric would be that you're really interested in? Because the whole industry is focused on viewership.
Yep.
They're also focused on clicks, and
Mhm.
it doesn't take a great imagination to think what they're searching on.
Right.
But if you think about search interest and intent, viewership and clicks, what do you look at? Like where does your organization say we want to see these things come together because that's when we know this fan is,
We want to be where the sports fan is all the time.
So the device or the
The
channel.
device,
matters
the
most?
channel, whether it's linear, whether it's especially social, right? So the work that we've done at ESPN across social, we've had our best year ever that we've had with YouTube, right? Also ESPN is the number one brand overall on TikTok. And we're doing that because we want to make sure that the fluid fan, the future fan, is engaging with content in different ways, right? Not a lot of people sit down and watch a 4-hour game, especially if you're from the ages of 18 to 25, right? But it does not mean that when they wake up in the morning, they're not ready to be at that water cooler with you, because their water cooler looks a little different. So what we have to understand is, like, what does the sports fan's path look like in and around those live moments, right? What does it look like now that the college football season has ended? We know right now that next year's college football season is going to be way different than this one already, right? So what are sports fans doing that are Texas, Oklahoma, USC, UCLA, Washington? How are their behaviors going to be a lot different than it was when they were in the Pac-12, right? It's going to be very different. Their viewership is going to be different. The way that they access and unlock short form content, from ESPN is going to be very different. So the metrics that we look at is time spent and engagement across a portfolio, and we look at the sine wave that happens from the beginning of any particular season until the very end.
Kate, you and I have talked about this a lot, largely because I get pummeled on LinkedIn when people know that we're connected. They're like, "Oh, can you connect me to Kate? I want to talk to her." And they usually just want to sell you something. You used a really important word. You said integrated partnership. And I want to know from your perspective what it means to have an integrated partnership. And if you could use data as that point of integration, where do you find that it's been most successful for you to establish an integrated partnership with a property where you're learning from each other and actually learning more about the fans in the process?
I think it's interesting. I think sponsorships are dead as far as like how we traditionally think about them, right? Branding, logo attribution, those days are gone, right? So when I say integrated marketing partnership, what I mean is we're starting with what is it that a product area or a brand is looking to drive? How are they looking to connect with their core audience? And then looking at the data across exactly what Wendell talked about, the various opportunities that exist in the sports landscape, and trying to figure out the right intersection to hit their core audience, right? And that's never a two-party conversation. And I think that's what's evolved so much now, and so much of what we do at Google, especially in the group that I'm in, which is the Media Lab, right? We look at consumer insights, we work with our partners at ESPN, right? And we try and figure out, okay, what's the right three-party model for how we're going to come at this and how we're going to engage with the fan where they are, not where we want them to be. And so what that means for me and how I use, in particular, kind of search trends and insights to decide that is, if you think about last night, right, and all the secondary conversations that were happening, there's what the broadcast is feeding us, but then there's like the queries that are going on, how to, going deep on Harbaugh's family, right? Like these different rabbit holes that fans are going down. That's what those TikTokers, right? And the younger audiences are going to be talking about at the water cooler. And that's how I'm trying to intersect with them. So what I usually do, and this is available to all of you, if you were to go into Google right now and Google search trends, you can actually figure out what are the top, trends circulating around the championship game last night, right? What are things that people, and the obvious things will rise to the top, right? But what I'm more interested in are the secondary conversations, right? What are the rabbit holes that they're going down? And then how can I take those insights and actually come up with creative, either real time or working with a creator and a contributor to be in that conversation with our fans, and then use social, different content channels to actually engage with that fan in a way that's meaningful. The trick is, for all of us on this stage that represent brands, is to intersect authentically, right? Because what you don't want to do, and I think this is where, to Wendell's earlier comment about kind of we've been lazy in sports, the sports fan is so avid, they're so engaged. So what that means is if you're going to come in as a brand to engage with them, you have to do it so authentically, because they will sniff you out so fast for forcing yourself on them, forcing yourself into the conversation. And so what we're trying to do a lot of times across the different product areas that I work with at Google Pixel, how do the features of the Google Pixel phone help you super zoom in to the tennis court with Serena Williams so that you as a fan can capture that really authentic final moment, right? Where she takes her bow on center court. That moment for us, and knowing that the product feature can authentically play a role in connecting the fan to that moment, hitting the nail on the head there, that's what we've got to do.
How do you do that across your portfolio? Like I always obsess about your job because I'm like, you have to sell a phone.
Yeah.
You have to sell a YouTube TV subscription. You have to sell a cloud service. Like, yeah, authentically, you can talk to each of those areas with the product features and with data, but like, is that up to the agency to take it the last mile, which is like to tell that story with the data that you're arming them with? Or how do you think about that? It's just super challenging in my perspective.
It is super challenging, but I think there's no one size fits all strategy, right? You've got to have kind of like the full, I call it like the full breadth army, right? So you've got to have the right creators who are, you form a partnership, let's say with, the NWSL, and you want to make sure that you're working with Tobin Heath on generating content there that will be relevant to that fan. You've got that going on while you've also got your ESPN strategy in line at the same time too. So I think it's kind of like you have to very carefully, and I'm not saying we're not talking about Google across all these things. The right partnerships come through the right set of insets to form those associations, right? So for me, like Google Pixel being in the NBA or the WNBA won't make as much sense for maybe Google search and consumer apps, where I'm trying to do much more around the features, like helping people understand what Lens does and how they can engage more specifically with Lens. It's a complicated question. It means that you and your agencies have to be really diligent about each of the different verticals that you can that are at your fingertips to basically launch your marketing plan.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate the answer because it is complicated, but it's also one of those things where it puts people in the mind of what you're trying to achieve through these partnerships. And that gets me to you, Christine, because like I won't make you do this. I'll say it. The NFL, Major League Baseball, a lot of these properties have traditionally not had a lot of data to share back with their partners. So if you're spending a lot of money with 30 plus teams, 20 plus teams, and you want to know how your products are performing and how your sponsorship dollars are working, it's often very hard to figure that out.
100%.
Okay, so you did say it. But can you sort of expound on sort of like what that forces you to do as a marketer to think about like these partnerships on an ongoing basis? How creative do you have to be to get that data from other sources if you're not getting it directly from your partner?
To the point Wendell was making earlier, right, about how your belief is that sports is ahead of the curve when it comes to data. I would say I think we're a little still behind though, because to your point, Josh, everyone is so concerned about keeping their data, right? It's very much a commodity that the more I know, the better I can sell as a team, right? The Vegas Knights don't necessarily want to share their fan data with the San Jose Sharks because, well, there's a risk there that they could then become a San Jose Sharks fan, which is such a backwards way of thinking because let's all grow the game. But that's the way I think it's been traditionally looked at. From where I sit on the brand side of things, the more data you can give me, the better I'm going to be able to build a sponsorship and the better I'll be able to tell what my Verizon story is. And that's connecting fans to the game, right? We put the consumer, the fan at the front and center of what our partnerships are and how can we, Verizon, let's be real, an invisible product. We're not the manufacturer of your device. You're going to somebody else to buy that device. We're just the thing that makes it work. It's a very important thing. Don't get me wrong. But we want to use our sponsorships to tell the story of how you as a Philadelphia Eagles fan can more quickly get a beer through the 5G network because we have an express shop situated right on the plaza. Pop in, 27 seconds later, you're out and you're on your way to the seat, right? That's the story we want to be telling to fans in an authentic message and not just slapping our logo on a story of the fastest run of the week, right? Like, no.
Oh, man, we used to do that a lot.
Thank goodness we've advanced.
Yeah, I think the nice thing is none of you have a brand recognition problem. So the
Exactly.
opportunity here is to really be thoughtful about how you activate on the data. Stephanie, I think it's important for the audience to understand that you're not just the Vegas Golden Knights, you're part of Foley Entertainment. So to Christine's point about like maybe the NHL teams aren't sharing their data with each other because ego and everything. No, but it's across all leagues. Like everybody knows this. Yeah, there's still an ego. There's still a defensiveness. It's not healthy. But let's put that down for a second and pick up the idea of an ownership group, right? Because I do think there are opportunities. We work with Monumental. We've certainly had opportunities to work with other ownership groups where you literally get like a WNBA team, an NHL team, and maybe a Premier League team. So talk a little bit about your opportunity when you look across the ownership portfolio to use data, maybe a little bit outside of just the Vegas Golden Knights.
Yeah, so our ownership, Bill Foley is our owner. Foley Entertainment Group is our ownership group. We have sports properties all over the world. So we have an English Premier League team, Bournemouth Cherries, out in Bournemouth, UK. We've just launched a expansion team in New Zealand for the Australia professional soccer club or soccer league. And then aside from sports, we have minor league sports here in Market. We also have wineries all over the world, 30 plus wineries all over the world, hospitality venues, restaurants, et cetera, et cetera. So pretty broad kind of perspective in terms of what we're looking at day in, day out, to utilize the data and use insights across the entire portfolio. Total transparency, where we're at right now, is kind of the beginning stages of that. Each of the different verticals has, and foundations is the other vertical. I'd be remiss not to mention that. So each of the different verticals has a pretty good handle on their own data. Right now, it's connecting it. So the Foley Entertainment Group as an umbrella property was really just formed in the last 18 months. And so not only is it the technical infrastructure of connecting all of that data, it's also all of these different privacy laws, right? When you bring in alcohol or you bring in hospitality, you bring in the UK, you bring in various countries, that adds another layer of complexity. So for us, what we're trying to look at to action on the day-to-day while the kind of deeper infrastructure gets put in place is really just around similarities between how fans interact, right? So how is the wine industry interacting? What is that telling us that we could potentially utilize for the hotel industry? If people are spending more money on hospitality and more money on wine and hotels, are they more interested in package deals for the Vegas Golden Knights? Are they interested in traveling to Bournemouth, right? So for some of our partners here in Market, they do have interests outside of this DMA. They do have interests globally. They do have interests nationally. So for us, it's looking at kind of spend trend and activity trend and using that to hopefully project out what we think is going to happen while, like I said, we get that deeper level of data infrastructure put in place where we can connect them all through, various other technologies behind the scenes.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of what Stephanie is saying here, again, the work that Sports Innovation Lab is doing and access to consumer data and what you're buying and when you're spending, right? We can look at the data that we've now have access to know that a Verizon customer is more likely to be a sports bettor, is more likely to use a product like Klarna, or buy now, pay later product, than our competitors are. So, I mean, that is powerful knowledge for sitting in a marketing seat where we know that dollars are always looked at first when it's time to trim back. Marketing, we sit in the seat where we get looked at first. But so if we have fundamental detail and data that we can prove hey, this is going to work. If I can do a partnership with the Washington Commanders and Drizzly, let's say, because we now know that Washington Commander fans who are Verizon customers also buy at Total Wine. Very high level. Please don't share that. Very high level, and as an example only. Just for example,
I think it's actually a slide we made for you, but
I paid attention. So that's the kind of thing that's so valuable to me, and how we can not just cookie cutter all of our sports sponsorships, right? A Golden State Warrior fan is not the same as a Vegas Golden Knights fan, as a New York Knicks fan. So how can I differentiate? Because I want to be sticky with that fan and that Verizon customer.
If I may, so the word that we haven't used yet, but we said it a lot, is insights, right? So what everyone's talking about is so we talk about sharing, right? Data sharing. We don't have a choice. We don't win business and opportunities with our customers unless we are very smart very smart. There you go. I'll hold like a rapper. Very smart about our fans, right? So now when Christina's doing that work or Kate's doing that work, the next thing is, okay, Wendell, ESPN, Disney, what does that look like across your portfolio? What are their behaviors? How are they engaging? So on and so forth. And we want to do it in a privacy, fluid manner that's very compliant, obviously. So we have clean room partnerships that allow us with every holding company and every specific marketer that has a nice CRM built on their own, and we are able to actually help them match their insights to fandom. Right? Once you match the insights to fandom, then you're getting the engagement. Then you could actually prove that your marketing dollars are working, because at the end of the day, the data unlocks insights. The insights unlock performance, right? Because what your CMO is going to ask you is buy more of what's working, and you have to know that. So, at Disney and ESPN, our opportunity to work with every advertiser is to let them know as much as they can about Disney's audience. So we have a very fluid first-party data audience graph that what I feel like we are ahead a little bit of the others as well, is that it gives us the opportunity now to actually talk about fandom, scale, reach, targetability, performance, and insights. The RFPs that I used to get, even 5 years ago, are very much different than the RFPs that I'm getting now. It's not just like I want to be able to be, to leverage my NFL corporate partnership or my NBA corporate partnership. It's like I want to be able to tell the pixel story in the NBA. How do we do that? Question mark. And then it's all up to you from there.
And this is where, and I'm the word that's going to, the buzzword of this CES, which is AI. That is where AI is going to be instrumentally helpful, is helping us take large swaths of data, synthesize it in a way that actually helps us hit the nail on the head. So when you're cross-sectioning, spirits and wine against this, NHL team, against this generation of audience in this zip code, you're able to actually get much more specific about the type of creative maybe that you should be building, how you're going to be reaching out to that particular audience. They're probably not watching broadcast. You're going to need a creator. I just think it'll allow us to be much quicker about synthesizing that data and getting quicker to how we want to go to market with those fans and engage them.
Yeah, I mean, we should wrap the panel on that note, meaning like, let's do some future gazing. I will say that my team's been working with this AI stuff. And I do call it AI stuff because everything's from like super sophisticated to like, yeah, you can do that with SQL. And the idea is that this technology, and this is a perfect conference to have this conversation, it becomes really valuable when you start playing with it. And if you haven't gone on to ChatGPT, OpenAI, and you haven't written a prompt, you have to. Because you have to start seeing how this stuff is doing what Kate just said, which is it's going out and it's aggregating and it's scraping, in many cases, things that you can see now legally are going to be big and contentious. In fact, the New York Times is in the battle right now. It's going out and it's learning about all of this stuff. And in our world and at Sports Innovation Lab, it's learning about the consumer. And what that means is we can see and we can model consumer behavior on how many times they switch their betting platforms. They go from FanDuel to DraftKings to Prize Picks
to ESPN Bet.
I was going to get there. And then back to ESPN Bet because it was such a dominant and phenomenal experience that they're never going to leave. And then we can look at how long their lifetime value is. But the whole point is you can see what customers buy. You can see how they behave without knowing who they are, and you can build very sophisticated lookalike models. What we're doing is we're bundling those up into audiences. So if you want to go after the people that switch from AT&T to Verizon and are high-value sports bettors, you should be able to find other people like that out there on the internet. Because what Wendell is talking about is identity spines and identity graphs are the infrastructure for how digital communications work, and it's been around for a long time. And all you need now is the right sports information, the right fan information to plug into that to reach the people that are high-value sports bettors interested in a Pixel phone that might want to go to a Vegas Golden Knights game, subscribe to Verizon, and bet on ESPN Bet.
All the things.
That's an RFP. That is an RFP right there.
Okay. So I noticed they just updated the clock. We have about 7 minutes. Let's do the future gazing thing. give it one thing at a time here. Data, we agreed, we disagreed a little bit on how far behind sports is. Tell me what changes in the next 5 years that makes either your working relationships with each other or your work with the league or your partnerships with other brands more powerful. I think this industry is focused on what's next, where these devices are headed, what the new viewing experience is, the sphere, all these sort of immersive experiences. What do we need to learn about these fans in the future in the next 5 years that's going to really move product and change the way that fans experience sports? Go.
I'll jump in. So obviously, I think in the headlines, women's sports has been on the rise, right? I think the thing that makes me nervous with these huge general statements about how much the growth of the game is happening, like, right, we can see in search trends, just the inquiry from 2021 to 2023 is, the spike is like this for the WNBA and the NBA, the NWSL. I think the thing, however, that we need to unpack with that is where the fan is, because the women's sports space is still incredibly fragmented. So my hope, if I'm future thinking, is how do we defragment, or, because that might be very hard to do still, or how do we make it still easier for the fan to find what they're looking for when it comes to these women's sports initiatives? One of the things that we actually did to unpack that in the UK ahead of forming a partnership with the FA was off the back of the Women's Euros the year before in 2022, we did a data set with Women's Sports Dress to look at, like, what are fans, okay, the growth of the game has been huge, but what are fans actually hungry for still, and where can we actually help fill that gap as a brand? And what they're hungry for is content. They're still hungry for reporting on specific nuance to sport, not just general watching, but like, hey, I want to go deep on this specific athlete. Help me know that athlete better. And so that actually is entirely informed what we formed in the UK, which is called Pixel FC, which is really just a content generation platform with the FA that did phenomenally well during the Women's World Cup. And so I think brands getting smarter about unpacking large swaths of data using AI to again, pull on those insights to figure out, like, where can I add value? Where can I help this fan connect more meaningfully to what they want to connect with? That is where I think the future is.
I would say from my seat, the future of the fan and fan experience is where we look at Verizon. It's hard to get to a game. It's hard to park. It's, tickets are so expensive. I actually get a better view if I stay at home and watch on ABC. Getting fans to the game, but the live experience, though, is such an important emotional piece of why we're all fans in the first place, right? So it's really exciting at Verizon with the network, all of this future, everything that's happening at CES, right? All of the tech and all the integration that's coming, that's going to work and function based on the network that we have. So it's really exciting to see all of the new things that are coming here at CES and in CES 2029. What will be coming to see how the fan experience truly changes and develops over the next few years.
Yeah, just to add on to both of those. So from my perspective, data that I'm really looking for is that barrier to success, right? Like, I know once I get you in the building, I'm going to win you over. Our fan experience, I'd put it up against anything in the world. It's pretty emotional. It's electric. It's very exciting. The product on the ice is very good.
Do you have a game this week, by the way?
We do.
Yeah. You guys,
and there are tickets for sale.
Seriously, if you can go,
asking.
and she didn't ask me to do this, but if you can go. I've been to one, the marching band, the wheel, whatever you do, bong, gong,
Siren.
It's just crazy. The whole
Golden
thing is
Night,
nuts.
yeah. It's a show. Our owner, just a quick aside, I know we're running out of time here, but challenged us to have the best entertainment product on the Strip when we first started. So that's quite a high bar. I don't run the entertainment in the game, so I can brag about it all I want, but they do a phenomenal job and take a lot of pride in it. So thank you for that. Hope to see all of you there. So I want to know the barriers to success, right? So if it's parking, I want to be able to help you understand how easy parking is to purchase. If it's travel time, I want to give you the best, Google Maps route down to the arena to show you that it's actually only 20 minutes. It's not that far. You can't even get to the grocery store in 20 minutes in some of the parts of the city. So that's one of the things I'm looking at. We have a lot of positive reinforcement data coming in that you can kind of get lost in. I want to know what the struggles are to get to our game. So once I get you there, I think I can win you over. Separately, just to kind of elaborate on what Kate was talking about, I truly think data and contextualizing competition is the way to grow fandom globally. So not only does it drive your core fan deeper into their fandom because they have fantasy teams and they want to talk with their buddies. They got 17 group chats that are talking about the stats and how the action of the game is playing out. Fantasy sports, live betting, all of those things, right? So it's driving your core fan deeper into their fandom, but it's also contextualizing the sport for somebody that has no idea what's going on. There's an enormous amount of information that's captured at the competitive level that we're starting to see come through on broadcast a little bit more. My hope is that we see that come through on broadcast a lot more in the future, but also through content, through follow-up discussion, because it allows somebody that doesn't know a whole lot about the sport to think, oh, wow, the average speed of an NHL skater is 22 miles an hour. That's pretty fast. I can't run that fast. I can barely drive that fast in the city. So it gives you some point of reference if you have no reference to what's happening on the ice or in any other sport. The NFL does a great job of real-time data sharing. So I think those insights are really what's going to drive fandom growth globally outside of your core audience, which you just are continuing to protect.
The
That was
nice
Wow.
I give Wendell
What
60
do I say?
seconds.
Yeah,
No, no,
but
I
the
got
nice
it.
part about the 60 seconds is you can literally drop the mic when you're done.
Oh, thank you. I might throw it. Yeah. Okay. First, I'm going to say Kate has been a force as it relates to women's sports. You should know that. And we are very proud. You might have seen that last week we announced our new NCAA corporate partnership that we have, where for the first time, women's college basketball and women's sports is on par with the rights that we are paying. That's one. That's very important, right? And two, right, is betting and gaming, right? Obviously, what drives engagement is different than what drove engagement even 5 years ago, right? If someone is actually spending time gaming and betting, they're spending a lot more time, consuming the sports as well. And the last one I will use from a media perspective as a platform and as a partner, the automation of buying live sports programmatically. And what I mean by that, ESPN streams over 30,000 games that aren't on broadcast. You give us your first party data, we will be able to tap into an untapped audience in a way that is actually driving effectiveness, efficiency, and be able to tell your story to the exact fan that you want to do. We do that a lot with Google already, by the way. So
Okay.
you guys are like leaders in the clubhouse.
I'll let you throw the mic. If you guys are interested in the women's sports angle, stick around. In 20 minutes, my colleague Gina Waldhorn will be having a panel on that. Kate's been influential in all of our research in that area, and we're going to share a lot more on that coming forward. I want to thank all of my panelists. Thank you guys for coming, and thank you guys for being here this morning.